How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we're talking about MagnaMax, but also 15V, Maxamet, REX121. What do they have in common? Do we have some good news? I think we're going to get into it. So, 15V. I believe the Manix or the native was recently released in 15V, maybe both of them around the same time, but basically there's been another release of 15V from Spyderco, and people are kind of talking about it again. Most of us know that CPM 15V is no longer made. It will not be made as far as we're concerned. Crucible went bankrupt quite a while ago, and nobody else really has the capacity to process 15V, so as far as we know, basically everyone's trying to get their hands on it through these Spyderco drops because it won't be available again. Niagara, Aerosteel, Carpenter, etc., they have all kind of sort of said that nobody has the capacity to run the temperatures to process 15V. So I've been trying to really compare my notes from my 15V testing to my current testing, which is MagnaMax, and see if they have any similarities, because the MagnaMax is going to be available at some point. I'm pretty sure Aerosteel or Carpenter is the one kind of taking over this whole thing with Laren, because again, this was a Crucible steel, but Crucible is no longer. That's why this Mule here is labeled CPM Proto-X, because it was being produced by Crucible and they went bankrupt. Now somebody else has to do it. It is now called MagnaMax, which of course the camera's never focusing. But I have noticed some similarities, which is good, because maybe we can kind of substitute the MagnaMax for the 15V since we won't have it. But I wanted to clear up some kind of like rumors or things that I've seen in comparison to Maxamet and REX121, because I have not found the same negativities, I guess I'll say, within 15V compared to these. Now, let's just preface with the fact that I have thoroughly tested all of these steels. I am still testing the MagnaMax, but I've been testing it for like a while now. I have a pretty good idea of how it works. I have full reviews on REX121 and Maxamet and 15V. Very, very thorough, including sharpening, including everything. So I have a pretty good idea of how these work, okay? Let's start with Maxamet and REX121, because these were both available to the mainstream market before the 15V was. Now, I'm not saying that these steels were created before 15V, because they weren't. What I'm saying is these knives in these steels were available before the 15V, because this took Sean like a ridiculous amount of time to resurrect 15V and dial in a heat tree for it, okay? So before 15V, some of the hardest super steels that we had available were Maxamet and REX121. Now we also have, you know, Z-Max, which can be run 7D HRC too, but the Zapp's steels are just now really being talked about, okay? Zap Tooling, who does all of the Z ones, Z-Wear, Z-Tough, Z12 Ultra, the Z-Max, that's Zap, okay? REX121 was a CPM steel, and Maxamet, I don't even know who makes Maxamet, actually. I know that it was like for ball bearings and stuff. It's a tool steel. But these were kind of the hardest super steels that we could get before 15V, okay? We're talking, you know, 68, 69, 70 HRC. The cool thing about these is that they both have high tungsten levels, which results in very high wear resistance, okay? But the downfall to these two steels for some people is that they are chippy, brittle, whatever, okay? Have they been like that for me? No. Maybe that's because I know how to work with them better, but for some people, they have found these steels chippy and brittle, and that's a little bit of a downfall. Now, I have found if you sharpen them properly with the correct materials, they don't tend to be too chippy, but it is a little bit finicky, okay? So what can happen is if you don't use diamonds, you're not really going to get anywhere with sharpening, okay? And I know there are other people online that say differently. I'm telling you right now, I really don't think anything conducive comes of trying to sharpen these steels on anything other than diamonds. You have to remember, the abrasive within the stone has to be harder than the steel. And I think you have to use diamonds, okay? You also have to use the correct grit, because if you use too low of a grit, you're going to chip your knife within sharpening, okay? So I have even chipped both of these on a 325 diamond because it was too coarse. And instead of sharpening it and raising a burr, it just chipped the crap out of the edge. So these steels, if you know how to work with them, they're awesome to experience. If you don't know how to work with them, they can be a pain, an absolute pain, okay? As cool as they are, they're not for everyone. So the REX121 will cut forever, as will the Maxamet, but they're not going to cut forever if you're chipping them during sharpening and you don't know how to work with them. So the cool thing about 15V was that it was supposed to have about as much cutting performance in terms of edge longevity as something like Maxamet, but be way easier to sharpen and have way better edge stability, not being as brittle, okay? Not having the chipping issues. Now, as far as I know, 15V is run around the 65 HRC range as opposed to 67, 68, 69, 70 type range, okay? But 65 is still pretty dang hard. We also have to remember that 15V has that 15% vanadium for the high volume of vanadium carbide. So 15V is kind of pushing the negatives, as I said in the beginning of the video, it's pushing the negatives from these steels out of the way and kind of making those ones not irrelevant, but not necessary per se, because 15V is offering everything that those do and more. It's kind of the same concept that we have seen with Pop's Pro Cut. Pop's Pro Cut is offering everything that everyone loves about low alloy tool steels and more. So it kind of makes the competition unnecessary because there's no point in those other steels anymore, because Pro Cut does everything and more way better. That's what we have found with 15V. Gabe from the Home Slice did a cut test the other day with 15V, and it actually outperformed Maxamet. Now, I believe he was running his dual grit edge that he invented, but it did outcut Maxamet, and Maxamet was kind of like the king of all cut tests across the board for everyone, and we're finding that 15V can outcut Maxamet. What's sad about that is the fact that 15V won't be made anymore, right? So we're like, crap, do we even use our 15V knives anymore, because we'll never be able to get them again as far as we know. I'm obviously going to use mine because once this shits the bed, I don't care. What I care about is the memories I make using it, the performance that I get out of it, and actually using my knives. There is 0 point for me in having a tool that works this well and letting it sit in a box and staring at it. Kind of weird, okay? So for me, I don't care. But for other people, it makes them sad. They don't want to use their 15V because they are convinced they will never get it again. Now, here's where MagnaMax comes in. MagnaMax is a new steel that has been formulated by none other than Dr. Laren Thomas. No, it is not MagnaCut. It is in the MagnaCut family, but is going to offer better edge retention, okay? It's not a replacement of MagnaCut either. It is very, very stainless, as is MagnaCut, but they're not the same. So, I want to share my findings with MagnaMax so far because I've had this Mule from Spyderco for a while, and this little MagnaMax knife from Gary Creeley is equally as awesome. So, I'm finding that these are pretty close in performance to the 15V. Now, we don't get the patina factor per se in the MagnaMax, as it is a stainless steel, and 15V is not. 15V definitely takes a patina, which I'm hoping the camera is kind of showing some of those beautiful blue hues there. I tested this for a month and reviewed it. I did game processing with it on camera, and it definitely picked up some cool colors in that time period. MagnaMax kind of isn't going to do that, okay? It is supposed to be a stainless version of K390 and 10V, so really not supposed to take the teeners too much, and I have found that to be true. I may or may not have some staining on these, but it's hard to tell because I don't clean my knives as often and as well as I should, and half the time it's gunk, unless I like literally clean it like this one, and that's like a true patina in there, because this knife is completely clean. So the MagnaMax, from my testing, which is all on the channel, has ridiculous edge holding, okay? Ridiculous. This, I know it won't give people the fizz like 15V will, and I really do think it's kind of that whole patina factor thing, but in terms of edge longevity, edge holding, edge wear, MagnaMax has ridiculous edge retention. It really does. This one I brought all the way down to a 325 grit diamond edge, and it just holds it forever. The one from Gary has his edge on it still. This looks to be a belt convex maybe, but a very nice one. The edge is, as you can see, kind of shiny and reflective, but not a true mirror. Ridiculous front end sharpness. And same thing, this has crazy, crazy edge longevity. These, I think, will be a good option for people that really wanted 15V but didn't get it. I'm finding that MagnaMax holds a working edge for a very long time. Pete from Cedric and Ada just did a cut test, I think last week, and it just kept going and going and going. Again, Maxamet results, essentially. So the whole point of this video is to kind of say that if you were really jonesing for 15V and you didn't get it, or you can't afford it right now, or whatever, and you have heard the talk in the community about it not being available any longer, I would really start aiming your focus toward MagnaMax. It's very much offering the same thing, guys. Again, it's stainless. You're not going to get the beautiful color hues from the 15V, but I will say the performance on these is ridiculous. I have a test up on this where we did a pretty ridiculous abuse test, and it just blew through the whole thing. I also have a rope cut test on that, not the same as what like Pete does, for example, but it was a dirty piece of rope that had been in my truck bed for a really long time, and this did like 10 times the amount of cuts as your average steel. It's very, very, very impressive, very stable. It seems to have great toughness, great strength from what I'm finding. I would just get more excited about MagnaMax if you are grieving the loss of 15V. And I know it's such a bummer because these knives keep getting released in it that were already kind of on the books to be released from Spyderco, you know, like the Native and the Manix and the Lil Native, whatever Yojimbo, Micro Jimbo, I don't even know, there are too many models in 15V, but it can be kind of a bummer to get one and then realize after that they're not going to be made anymore. So I just wanted to throw that option out there, that I'm finding it's very comparable to MagnaMax. Maybe in some cases, could it outcut MagnaMax? Maybe, I don't know. But they're very comparable to me. I have found that the MagnaMax is ridiculously easy to sharpen as well. I loved sharpening this. I have a whole video unedited freehand sharpening this steel, and it did ridiculously well. I've heard a couple people say that theirs wouldn't deburr, it felt like a burnt edge, whatever. That can happen sometimes. The MagnaMax is crazy easy to sharpen. I already have videos on that as well, but this I have found is one of the easiest steels I've ever sharpened in terms of like across the board easy. I just wanted to make that clear because for me, REX121 is ridiculously easy to sharpen too, but my version of easy is different than most people's, I've noticed. So this is easy for me with the right materials, whereas with MagnaMax, it seems like maybe you have more options for sharpening this, not just diamonds, and it is way easier and way more free-flowing to work with. It doesn't chip out on certain stones from my experience so far. Super easy to sharpen. So definitely consider putting MagnaMax on your list if you have not yet. I don't know when it will be released to the general public, aside from Gary's little minnows here that you can get, but yeah, just wanted to kind of point that out. With MagnaMax coming out, I don't necessarily see a point in these, which I know is going to really piss some people off, but I'm just saying as like a general umbrella term, the MagnaMax is fantastic, and it really works around the little finicky things that these ridiculously hard steels can encounter. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Just wanted to give that little PSA today. And you can get these little MagnaMax minnows. Gary is running them, so I'll link him down below. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. With that being said, go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. I'll see you guys on the next video. I wish I could carry this more. Sorry, that just like popped into my head. Look at how big the Mule is for me. This isn't even a big knife, but it's like a machete in my hands because I'm so tiny. Anyway, go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. I'll see you guys on the next video. I love you so much, fam. Take care.